Fixing Boeing's leaky Starliner and returning NASA's stranded astronauts to Earth is much harder than it sounds. Astronauts are stuck on the International Space Station, the ISS, after yet more problems with Boeing's beleaguered Starliner, and here's why an investigation into the issue is so difficult even for NASA. For the past few weeks, NASA's astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams have been stuck on the International Space Station, the ISS, after the first crewed voyage of Boeing's new Starliner spacecraft hit a snag. Concerns raised by Boeing and NASA over thruster problems and several helium leaks helium is used in Starliner's engine system have prevented the craft from making the return journey and as scheduled. NASA has now said the astronauts may have to stay put until the next scheduled crew switchover in August, potentially on another craft. Boeing and NASA are trying to put a positive spin on the extension by saying they are testing systems required for longer Starliner missions, but the project has already suffered several delays, having originally been set off to lift off for the first time with crew in 2017. This, combined with the latest problems, raises questions over the whole Starliner program, as you can imagine. Starliner was noted as having small helium leaks before it even launched. Helium is an inert gas, much like neon or xenon, meaning that it is very unreactive with other materials. And it makes it ideal when coming into contact with rocket fuel and high temperatures, although producing it is an expensive process. It's pressurized and used to push fuel into the engines at the correct rate. Helium leaks can mean that not enough fuel will reach the thruster. The leak spotted while Starliner was on the launch pad was determined to be negligible. Can you imagine? And the spacecraft was sent to orbit regardless. However, this turned out to be a larger problem than additional helium leaks were identified. Following launch, more leaks were identified, meaning that several of the spacecraft's small maneuvering thrusters could not be used. 4 of the 5 thrusters have been repaired while Starliner has been docked to the ISS, but it raises concerns for other thrusters cutting out during the return journey to Earth. On Starliner's return, re-entering Earth's atmosphere requires a very specific angle of attack to ensure there is not too much friction heating up the vessel. Now, an inability to adjust the orientation of the craft or to orbital parameters for re-entry could, in the worst-case scenario, result in massive heat buildup and the destruction of the spacecraft with the 2 astronauts on board. There are additional thrusters and other so-called redundancies, backup systems designed into the spacecraft so that this is a very unlikely scenario. However, so were the helium leaks. Unlikely scenario, and they happen anyway. While Boeing and NASA have considered it safe to return on Starliner, it's perfectly conceivable that the astronauts might have some trepidation and anxiety about this, especially as the issues did not occur when the uncrewed test flights. The next particular problem is that Starliner returns and jettisons its service module on re-entry as it returns to the surface on land rather than at sea, like Russian spacecraft Soyuz did and the SpaceX Dragon capsules do. This means that the bit of the spacecraft with all the vital information on it will be burned up, making it very difficult to determine what actually went wrong. Investigations in space. Currently, ground tests are being run by NASA. Investigations are being conducted on the ISS to gather as much information as possible before the return. The astronauts made it up to the ISS and are safe there, while it is unlikely that Starliner will return to Earth should a major fault be discovered while it's docked to the ISS. There are other return vehicles that can be used to ferry the 2 crew members back home. The astronaut safety will no doubt be paramount in the minds of both agency and industry, but this is not the first problem with Starliner. The vehicle has suffered from major delays since conception as part of the Commercial Crew Program in 2010. The contract indicated that Starliner should be ready by 2017, with a 2-year delay before the first successful unmanned launch in 2022. There was a failed attempt in 2019. The main crewed launch was then delayed by a month. These delays are indicative that Boeing is falling behind its main commercial competitor, SpaceX, which won the contract at the same time as Boeing in 2010 to build vehicles that could transport crews to the ISS. SpaceX successfully launched a crewed mission with the Dragon capsule in 2020. To give an indication of the success, Crew Dragon is currently completing its 5th manned mission to the ISS and has also completed 30 cargo missions. Boeing has been a major player in space missions with NASA for decades, playing a major role in the Space Shuttle program, for example. This relationship continues with the company's role in the Space Launch System (SLS) rocket that will send astronauts on their way to the moon. The company has been one of the biggest and most admired contractors in the aerospace industry. However, the problem with the Starliner came not long after widely publicized incidents with Boeing aircraft, so the corporation could do without any further problems with its crewed spacecraft to add to its woes. And this was from the conversation here under Creative Commons by Ian Whitaker on Life Science. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.